So what if, like, the highest form of disrespect to a fallen soldier is actually quietly accepting the government benefits they fought to secure for you?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a really heavy question to start with.
Right. It is. But today we are exploring a highly controversial framework that argues exactly that. I mean, it says staying on the government payroll doesn't honor past sacrifice, it actually insults it.
Which is such a massive shift from how we normally think about this stuff.
Exactly. And we're diving into a transcript from a lecture delivered just a couple of weeks ago, actually. It was on May 17th in Olson. And the title is Lecture 10SAR1, Veterans Month, June.
Right.
And since today is May 30th, 2026, this is, well, perfectly timed for you as we head into June, which is the National Month of Remembrance here.
Yeah.
Our whole mission for this deep dive is to radically rethink how we honor societal sacrifice.
Yeah, because this text completely reconstructs the modern concept of remembrance. Like, we're so used to these static, culturally mandated rituals of grief.
Like pinning a ribbon to a lapel.
Exactly. Or, bowing your head in silence for a minute and then just going right back to your exact same daily routine.
Right.
But this lecture views that passive mourning as totally obsolete.
It's basically a dynamic blueprint, right? Taking quiet gratitude and turning it into an active mandate for self-reliance. And, well, global citizenship.
It really is. It's not just history. It's a philosophical framework for how to live in society today.
But okay, let's unpack this, because to understand how it makes that leap, we have to start where the text starts,
Yeah.
which is a very candid and honestly controversial critique of government aid.
Yes, specifically looking at the Veterans Affairs Office.
Right. The source argues that relying on state aid when you don't absolutely need it is a severe moral failure. It actually frames taking taxpayer money as consuming the collective blood and sweat of the people.
What's fascinating here is that the author is really careful not to condemn the initial safety net. Like, getting help when your family faces unexpected hardship is treated as a totally necessary, humane thing.
Yeah, there's no shame in that immediate stabilization.
Right, none at all. But the lecture pivots super sharply when discussing what happens next. The moment a person regains their strength, they are expected to intentionally cut off that aid.
They have to pivot entirely towards self-reliance.
Exactly. The core argument is that lingering on assistance when you're capable of standing on your own creates this, like, psychological trap.
It's kind of like using a lifeboat, you know?
Yeah.
Lifeboat is essential when the ship sinks, obviously, but you can't permanently move your furniture in and declare it your new house.
That is a great way to put it. Or like keeping a cast on a healed broken leg.
Oh, yeah. At first, the cast is an absolute necessity. It protects you. But if you refuse to take it off once the bone is knitted back together just because it feels safe, your muscles will atrophy.
The very thing that saved you becomes the thing that disables you.
Right. But I do have to push back on this a bit, just on behalf of you, the listener, because we're talking about veterans and their families here. These are legal entitlements.
Sure.
If someone sacrificed their health or their family's stability for their country, they earn that compensation. So isn't it a bit harsh to tell those who suffered that taking what is legally offered to them is wrong?
Well, if we look at this impartially as a text about human psychology, the argument isn't really about legal rights at all. It's about preserving human dignity.
Okay, how so?
The source warns that if you cling to that cast when you can walk, your life will actually become tenfold harder. It introduces this systemic view where righteous, productive living naturally attracts blessings from the universe.
But if you just stay a passive consumer,
Then you get a course correction. The text playfully calls it a cosmic knock on the head.
a knock on the head. So it's basically a karmic realignment. The universe refuses to let you stagnate.
Precisely. It's not a malicious punishment, it's an intervention. By unnecessarily relying on public funds, you trap yourself in the identity of a receiver and you lock yourself out of evolving into a contributor.
So the universe introduces friction to force you out of that comfortable spot. And the moment you step into that active flow is what the lecture calls the turning point in life.
Yes, the turning point. It's when you transition from asking, what can I consume to what can I do for society?
And the source claims that even a tiny effort in this outward-facing direction guarantees heaven won't let you face true hardship.
And if you maintain that for 3 years, that cosmic protection becomes permanent. Which, makes sense from a psychological standpoint too.
Yeah.
3 years is enough time to completely rewire your behavioral pathways.
Right, it just becomes your baseline. But here's where it gets really interesting. To actually achieve that rewiring, The text introduces a philosophy called Homgik.
Yes, the philosophy of universal benefit.
Right. And it asks you to hold on to four specific questions in your mind. First, what should I do for my neighbors? Second, what should I do for my society? Third, what should I do for my country? And fourth, what should I do for humanity?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sequence of those four questions is the real engine here. It forces you to start local.
Because most people who want to change the world just skip straight to step four, humanity.
Exactly. They want to solve global hunger, but completely ignore the people living in their own apartment building.
Which is just a recipe for instant psychological burnout. The problems of humanity are way too vast. But the neighbor level, that's immediate. It's low stakes. It builds the muscle of contribution.
The neighbor is the microcosm of society, and society is the microcosm of the country.
Yeah. And the text makes a huge distinction here. This isn't a to-do list. It's a hwadu.
Right, a hwadu, like a Zen koan.
Yeah, it's a mental focal point. You aren't necessarily changing your physical actions on day one. You're just installing a new search engine in your brain that gradually filters how you see the world.
It's brilliantly designed. By
Mhm.
framing it as an open-ended question, like, what should I do, rather than you must do X, it totally bypasses our natural resistance to authority.
Nobody likes being told what to do.
Exactly. It leverages intrinsic motivation. You just insert these questions into your daily thoughts, and you shift from a passive observer to an active participant.
So if this internal hwadu rewires our brain, that mindset eventually demands a physical outlet. And the source actually points to a specific location for early June, the UN Memorial Cemetery in Busan.
This transition to external action is so crucial. The lecture paints this stark picture of the Korean War, a moment when South Korea's lights were going out.
Yeah, the highest debt of gratitude is owed to the UN forces.
Right. Young people and generals from all over the world who risked everything.
And that's why the text insists on visiting the UN Memorial Cemetery in Busan, because it's the only one of its kind in the entire world. And it says this visit should happen between June 1st and June 6th, or at least the first 10 days of the month.
You can go alone or in small groups of 3 to 5 people. But the really fascinating part is who the text says must lead this initiative. It calls in the group, it names the social parents.
Okay, so this raises an important question for you listening. What does it mean to be a social parent in this context? Like, if you're a young professional listening to this deep dive right now, does this apply to you?
It absolutely applies to you. It's not about biological age or having kids. A social parent is an elder in spirit. It's anyone who takes on communal responsibility.
Ah, I see.
Think about the UN soldiers buried there. They were mostly young men in their late teens and 20s, biologically practically children, but functionally, they acted as social parents for a totally foreign nation.
They took on a mature, protective role on a global scale.
Wow. So anyone asking those 4 questions is a social parent.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say you've accepted this. You travel to Busan, you're at the cemetery gates in early June. What do you actually do? Because the text says you don't just do traditional passive rituals like closing your eyes and bowing your head.
The lecture explicitly rejects passive mourning. It argues that directing your energy downward and backward into history anchors you to the tragedy.
Right, so what does this all mean for the actual visit? It means replacing the silent bow with an awakened vow. The text provides a very specific message you're supposed to project. It translates to, we will dedicate ourselves so that the reward of your sacrifice can be realized.
We will dedicate ourselves so that the reward of your sacrifice can be realized. That is powerful.
It totally dismantles the lifeboat mentality. You aren't standing there as a victim or just a passive recipient of freedom. You're an active inheritor of a duty.
It's literally like inheriting a family business.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
You don't honor the founder who worked brutal hours by just crying in front of their portrait in the lobby.
Yeah.
You honor them by putting on an apron and working to keep the business thriving. We are inheriting the society they saved.
By making that active vow, you are stepping fully into the role of a social parent. You're telling the fallen that their investment paid off.
And the text says you take the same active vow to domestic national cemeteries too, like in Daejeon or Seoul, moving from the global macrocosm to the national microcosm. So for you listening, just look at the immense journey we've gone on in this deep dive, from rejecting unnecessary dependency and the universe's knock on the head, to installing the hwadu of the 4 questions in your mind, to actively vowing to make past sacrifices worthwhile.
It completely turns the often somber month of June into this incredible launchpad for personal and societal growth.
It really does. But before we wrap up, I know you had a final thought you wanted to leave everyone with.
I do. It's something to mull over that builds on this whole source. If an entire society truly adopted this Hongik mindset, where every citizen focused on what they could do for their neighbors, their country, and humanity, and absolutely nobody took more public resources than they strictly needed, would the whole institutional concept of veterans benefits or even charity eventually become entirely obsolete? Right? Like, would those bureaucratic structures just fade away, replaced by a community that naturally and effortlessly absorbs the needs of its own people?
A society that functions so seamlessly that the cast isn't just removed, the bones stop breaking in the first place. That is an incredibly profound vision to hold on to. So, the next time a month of remembrance rolls around and you see the world settling into that passive script of silent mourning, remember the blueprint we explored today. You have the power to rewrite that script, starting with the person living right next door. Thanks for exploring this with us, and until next time, keep diving deep.